The format of this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, a 10-minute coffee break, and then a main speaker. Tonight, our first speaker is Kevin. Help me welcome Kevin to the stage. Oh, wait. Got chips.
Good evening. My name is Kevin and I'm an alcoholic. I want to welcome the newer people here. My sponsor used to tell me your life is going to begin to have a journey, and I welcome you to that journey. Got a sobriety date. It's May 15th, 2010. 10 minutes, so. All right. I grew up in a little bitty town. I qualified really easy. It took me working the 12 steps, especially 4 and 5, to realize back then that I was an alcoholic back then. I had a father. He was a normal drinker. He was a social studies teacher. He taught driver's ed. He worked for farmers. He was a busy guy, and I watched him drink Scotch and waters on occasion. Me, I drank his Scotch and waters. He had a closet. And he had bottles in there. And when they were out on dances and stuff, and I would be drinking their stuff. I didn't understand how he drank. He didn't understand how I drank. He would get extremely angry with me when I come home drunk. And I'm sitting back not understanding that until I did this. I didn't have a choice. I was coming home that way. If I started to drink, I couldn't stop to drink until I was good and drunk. And that happened since I was a kid. I remember this tall, sitting at our family dinner. We were a French Catholic community, so we drank wine. My mother would pour a little bitty glass of wine, and I remember that ease and effect, that ease and comfort, that drinking that stuff as a little kid, and I said, this is good. I chased that thing for the next 40 years. Never quite found the same thing. Went through high school. Graduated high school, and I moved to Connecticut. All through school and all through everything, it was just a big party. Okay, I drank. I did a bunch of drugs. That's a part of my story. A lot of marijuana up there, a lot of it, and a lot of drinking. I moved to Connecticut after I graduated, and I said, "Oh, here's where my life is going to change. I need to change my life. I need to get on because in my hometown, I was unemployable. My reputation was shot because of my lifestyle." So I moved to Connecticut. I got a pretty good career, got a pretty good job. And I said, well, I'm going to change right now. This is, it's one of those geographicals we talk about. It didn't take long for me to meet the guy named Keith. He was a drinker. And being away from home, being all alone and free, I began to drink again. I lost that career, really good career, after a couple of years of not showing up and showing up late. Where were you? Where was this? Where was that? And this went on. Every state I moved to, I ended up in jail for one reason or another. And working these steps, I realized that it all was based on alcoholism. Alcohol. I drank all the time. I moved around a lot. I ended up in San Francisco. Ended up in jail there. I was going to hit on something, and I don't remember what it was. It doesn't matter. I got to Connecticut. No, I'm talking about Arizona now. We got to Arizona, and it was every state I moved to, like I said, ended up in jail for one reason or another. It was an alcoholism. I got here, and I'll talk about Prescott because 10 minutes. So I ended up in Prescott after being married and having kids, and we came up here. And it was 2007. 2007, August of 2007, I got my first DUI. Okay? And I had a good job, so I got me an attorney, and we were working on it. He says, we could probably get you out of this. So we, postponed, proceeded. We were doing all these court things, and April of 2008, I got number 2. 2 weeks later, I got number 3. So here's the deal with that. The doctor's opinion, I was beyond human aid at that point. The doctor's opinion calls me an alcoholic. I drank for the ease and comfort. I drank because my body needed to. My obsession was there. And once I started the physical craving was there. That's me. That's how the doctor's opinion explains me really, really well, and that's how I drank. It also explains that my life seemed like the only normal one. I drank every day, and I had done that for decades. And I didn't think there was another way. I was in delusion. It was complete delusion. And I remember sitting in that courthouse. It was court day. They have these church pews. If anybody been in the courthouse here, the bottom floor, there's a cute little church pew there. And I was sitting there, and my attorney had just walked away from me. And I realized in the next 15 minutes my life was going to change. And my choice on that change was completely out of my hands. First time in my life I realized somebody else was going to make my decisions for me based on my actions. And that's what happened. I'm not going to fill you with any horror stories because horror stories didn't get me in here. I want to read something real quick. One sentence. You know, I could give you all the horror stories, all the jails, all the fights, all the crap that I went through, and I don't have to because of this. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. Okay? I came in here and I listened to all the old timers, and I heard nasty stories for them. And that wasn't going to keep me sober, you know? That wasn't going to keep me sober. Because when the obsession comes back to me, the book tells me I'm not even going to remember my own humiliation and horror stories, much less yours. So I'm not going to give you many of mine. I don't have to. You've all been there, I bet. I get a little embarrassed about this jail term. I had 3 DUIs in a 10-month period. I got an attorney. I had a pretty good job at the time. I was living up on Thumb Butte. I was taking care of a house, and I had dealing with 4 children at the time. So my attorney had a really good voice. I'm standing there in front of the judge. He goes, "Your Honor, this guy knows he has a drinking problem. He's going to get help. He has to take care of his children." And he was going on, and I looked over at that guy, and I said, "Go, dude, you're doing really, really well." Come to find out, he was correct on everything he was telling that judge. I was an alcoholic, and I didn't know. I was in delusion. I didn't know. I was ruining my children's life. I was ruining my own life. So he got me a pretty good deal because they wanted my money. I had a $12,500 fine before it was all said and done. So he got me some jail term, and I got out, and I remember getting out, and I got drunk that night. The county courthouse was here in town, and a friend of mine, she told me, she worked at the bar, and she said, just stop by the bar when you get out to let me know you're okay. So and in jail, all that jail term, I'm sitting there, I said, well, I can't drink anymore. I've got this, because in jail you can't drink. So I'm just sitting there, and my head's clearing up, and I'm saying, okay, I've got this. I'm not going to drink anymore. Look what I've just done. They towed my Lincoln Town Car. My attorney said, "Where's your car?" I said, "It's in Chino. It's at a lot. I got to get it out of there." He looked at me straight in the eyes. He goes, "Leave it. You're not going to need it." They revoked my license for 3 years. I got a $12,500 fine. I had to do boatloads of community service. I had to do the MAD thing. There was consequences for years and years. Today I'm going to tell you they're all gone. One day at a time, I took care of those consequences. I walked into this courthouse down here every month for 5 years, and I gave those ladies behind the glass $205. It took me 5 years to pay that shit off. And we were excited at the end. I'm walking in there, and she was telling me, she goes, "One of your charges is gone. After a while, you pay off the charges." And then in the last few months, I'm going there. Everybody's excited. They're behind the glass, and they're excited. "You just got a couple more payments. And that last payment was a $95 payment, and that $12,500 was paid. I had been sober then for some years. My revoked license, and then when I got the license back, I needed the blow and go for a year. It took me a long time to pay off those consequences, but I did. I started sitting around these rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started listening to those old timers. They were telling the same story that I was living at the time. They were telling all these things that I was going through at the time, and there was one difference. They were happy, they were sober, I was not. The book talks about when you run into that, there's only one thing left to do. Pick up that kit, spiritual tools, lay at your feet. I knew I was out of luck. I knew it was done. That judge says, I see you again, you're going to prison for years. Okay. My children were upset. They knew me sober, they knew me drunk. They didn't like me either way. I remember that first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous I went to. I babbled something. And I went home, and something happened at that meeting. I'm cooking dinner for the kids, and I hadn't been drinking. I had just left the meeting. And number two, my boy, he was sitting on the couch, and he looked at me, and he goes, "Dad, have you been drinking?" And I said, "No, Kyle, I haven't," because they didn't know my state of mind. Something started happening after that first meeting. And I want to promise you all something. You work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Really get a sponsor. Really sit down. Look at those steps. Look at your life. Work the steps. Your life is going to change. Who you're looking at right here 10 years ago, I'm not the same man that walked in here. I was an irresponsible, drunken jailbird. That's what I did. I went to jail. I drank. I got in trouble. I went to jail. Those 3 DUIs, it didn't matter what time of the day or night it was. If I was getting pulled over, I was going to jail. One was 7:30 in the morning. One was 2:30 in the afternoon. One was 7 p.m. Every one of those, I got in the back of a police car and I went to jail because I was always drinking at the time, always. Alcoholics Anonymous changed that. I'm creeping up on 10 years. Yeah. And like I said, 2000 and 2007 and 8, those 3, I didn't get sober right away. I'm a real alcoholic. I had to go back out and find out some things. And I did. I found out some things. A lot of cool things happened in my life. My kids and I, my number 2 boy is in Colorado, but number 1's here. He's got a really great job. He's a manager over at Safeway. My 2 younger ones are as tall as I am now. We went tubing down the Salt River on Labor Day. Me and them too. And her boyfriend. They like me today, and I love them today. I'll do anything for those kids. Back in the day, those 2 little ones, by the way, don't remember me drunk. My 2 older ones do. They'll always remember. But I've made my amends, and they talk to me today, and we do things today. Before I go, I'm going to read you one promise. I promise you something. Your life is going to change for the better. You're going to get to do things you never got. In sobriety, I've gone back to school. I got me I was 47 when I got here. I'm 58 now. Okay. In my 50s, I got 3 surgeries, and I got through them fine. I divorced this woman that it should have been divorced a long time ago. I went back to school. I got a degree. I got a great career today. And that's in my 50s I did this. So you young people, you can do this now and have a great life. There's one promise. I was just sitting with a friend of mine a while ago. We were going over some stuff. And I found something in Bill's story that was never there before. We run into that a lot when we're reading the big book. Something in it today stuck out, and I want to read it to you guys. It's one of the greatest promises Bill can give and I can give. And then I'll be done. We commence to make fast friends, and fellowship has grown up among us, of which it is a wonderful thing to feel a part. The joy of living we really have, even under pressure and difficulty. I have seen hundreds of families set their feet in the path that really goes somewhere. Have seen the most impossible domestic situations righted, feuds and bitterness of all sorts wiped out. I have seen men come out of asylums and resume a vital place in the lives of their families and communities. Business and professional men have regained their standing. There is scarcely any form of trouble and misery which has not been overcome among us. In one western city, it's in environs, there are 1,000 of us in our families. We meet frequently so that newcomers, that's you guys, may find the fellowship they seek. At these informal meetings, one may often see from 50 to 200 persons. We are growing in number and power. and that was back when this book was written. Today we're in 180 different countries. The big book is translated into over 70 different languages. We just finished the Navajo language. If you know about the Navajo language, it's not a written language. It had to be put on tape. And there's a whole set of CDs of 164 languages, 764 pages for the Navajo people. We're all over the world, and we help hundreds and thousands and millions become sober. If you really, 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 really want to get sober, and you're willing to go to any length to get it, that's what they tell you. There's these steps to do. Today I have a wonderful life. I'm involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a GSR for my home group. I get to travel the state and do the background business of Alcoholics Anonymous. I get to hang out with my children. I get to live a really, really good life. I want to thank you for coming tonight.